The Hollywood spotlight has never burned brighter or hotter than it does right now. As Justin Baldoni makes a move so bold it could change everything in his high-stakes legal battle with Blake. Lively after months of silence, calculated filings. And behind the scenes maneuvering, Baldoni has officially struck back, demanding that Lively's lawsuit be thrown out entirely, and the entertainment world is reeling. This is not just another procedural step in a celebrity dispute. This is a statement, a challenge and a gamble all rolled into one, because if the court sides with Baldoni, it could end this lawsuit in a single sweeping decision, leaving Lively to face the fallout in both her professional and personal worlds. The stakes are enormous, not just for the two stars at the center of this storm, but for the entire industry that is watching closely. This battle has been unfolding in the public eye, with every document leaked, every rumor amplified, and every social media post analyzed for clues, but now the tone has shifted. The game has changed. Baldoni is no longer on the defensive. He is going on the attack, and the timing of this move has sent shockwaves through Hollywood, from legal experts to fans. Everyone is asking the same questions. What evidence does Baldoni have that makes him so confident? What weaknesses has he found in Lively's case? And most importantly, how will the court respond? This is more than just a legal filing. It is the latest chapter in a power struggle, where image, reputation, and truth are all on the line. And as the battle intensifies, one thing has become crystal clear. Neither side is prepared to back down. The tension in Hollywood. Legal circles has reached a fever pitch as Justin Baldoni makes a bold and strategic move in his ongoing battle with Blake Lively, a move that could potentially change the entire trajectory of this high-profile case and send shockwaves across the entertainment industry in a calculated and assertive filing. Baldoni has now formally requested that the lawsuit brought against him by Lively be dismissed in its entirety, arguing that the claims are unfounded, unsupported by credible evidence, and driven more by public relations theatrics than by genuine legal merit. This development did not come out of nowhere, but rather follows months of mounting pressure, shifting narratives, and a growing perception in the industry that Lively's legal offensive has been losing both momentum and public sympathy. Observers close to the situation have noted that Baldoni has been quietly assembling a formidable team of attorneys and strategists, each handpicked for their expertise in dismantling high-profile claims under intense public scrutiny and in a media environment where perception can be as critical as the courtroom verdicts themselves. Insiders reveal that this legal team has meticulously reviewed every statement, filing, and public comment related to the case, identifying inconsistencies and weaknesses that they believe could form the foundation for a dismissal request, while Lively's side has portrayed her lawsuit as a necessary stand against what she frames as harmful behavior. Baldoni and his representatives have countered with a narrative focused on truth, factual accuracy, and the protection of personal reputation from what they describe as speculative and exaggerated allegations. The dismissal motion is not merely a procedural tactic, but a direct challenge to the very heart of Lively's case. It asserts that the lawsuit fails to meet essential legal thresholds, that it relies on broad claims without substantial proof, and that it has been amplified in the court of public opinion in ways that are both unfair and damaging to Baldoni. The stakes could not be higher, because if the court grants the dismissal, it would not only vindicate Baldoni, but also deal a potentially devastating blow to Lively's credibility in the eyes of both the industry and the public. This battle has unfolded against a backdrop of relentless media coverage, with every filing and statement dissected by legal analysts, celebrity commentators, and social media users alike. While some continue to support Lively, there is a growing segment of voices questioning the strength of her claims and whether this lawsuit is truly about justice or more about maintaining a certain public image. Baldoni, for his part, has largely refrained from making inflammatory public statements, preferring to let his legal filings speak for themselves. But those close to him say that behind the scenes he is deeply committed to seeing this matter resolved in a way that clears his name and allows him to move forward without the shadow of litigation hanging over his career. What makes this case particularly complex is the intersection of legal strategy and celebrity culture in Hollywood, where personal disputes can quickly become public spectacles, and where reputations are both currency and fragile assets. When Lively first filed her lawsuit, it was accompanied by a wave of sympathetic coverage fueled by her public persona and long-standing popularity. But over time, as more details emerged and as Baldoni began to mount his defense, that initial wave has shown signs of receding, with some outlets now taking a more balanced or even skeptical view of the claims being made. The legal arguments in Baldoni's motion to dismiss reportedly center on several key points, including the absence of direct evidence to support certain allegations, the reliance on hearsay and secondhand accounts, and the framing of events in ways that do not align with documented timelines and communications. His legal team is expected to emphasize that under the applicable legal standards, a case cannot proceed based solely on narratives and implications, without hard evidence supporting the specific claims being brought. This is not only a legal fight, but also a test of how much the court of public opinion influences the actual court system in high-profile cases. Industry insiders have noted that in similar past disputes, the side that managed to maintain consistent, factual messaging while avoiding unnecessary public drama often fared better. Both legally and reputationally, in this context, Baldoni's relatively restrained public approach could work to his advantage, especially if the court views the case as more about optics than substance. The move to seek dismissal also puts Lively's legal team in a position where they must respond not only to the legal arguments, but also to the shifting public narrative, because if the perception grows that the case is weak or opportunistic, it could erode the broader support that has been a key part of Lively's strategy from the start. Hollywood is watching closely because this case is seen as more than just a personal dispute between two well-known figures. It is a potential precedent setter for how aggressively public figures can pursue litigation when their reputations are at stake, and how the accused can fight back when they believe the claims are unjustified. With each passing day, new commentary emerges from legal experts and publicists alike, some predicting that the court will at least allow certain parts of the case to proceed, while others believe that Baldoni's motion could be granted in full, effectively ending the legal chapter and leaving only the lingering media narratives for Lively to manage. Regardless of the outcome of this particular motion, it is clear that Baldoni's decision to strike back in such a decisive manner has already changed the dynamics of the dispute and signaled to both his supporters and detractors that he is not willing to simply absorb the accusations without challenge in a world where image often competes with facts for dominance. Baldoni's legal gamble is a reminder that the courtroom remains the ultimate arena for settling disputes, no matter how loud the outside voices may become. As the legal chess match between Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively intensifies, the filing of the motion to dismiss has set off a chain reaction of responses, speculation, and strategic recalculations across both camps. Legal experts who have been following the case note that such motions are not uncommon in high-profile disputes. But what makes this particular filing stand out is the level of detail and the assertive tone reportedly contained within it. Sources close to the proceedings suggest that Baldoni's attorneys have not only challenged the legal sufficiency of Lively's claims, but have also subtly undermined the credibility of key elements of her narrative by pointing to contradictions between her public statements and her earlier testimony. The motion to dismiss, according to insiders, is structured to methodically dismantle the claims by starting with procedural arguments before moving into substantive challenges in legal strategy. This approach serves a dual purpose. It allows the defense to attack the case on multiple fronts, and it forces the plaintiff to defend both the technical and factual underpinnings of her lawsuit. If the court agrees with even one of the procedural arguments, such as jurisdictional issues or failure to state a claim, parts of the case could be thrown out without ever reaching the question of whether the allegations are true on a deeper level. Observers in the entertainment industry are seeing this move as a test of how far a celebrity can go in using the legal system as part of a broader public relations battle. When Lively first filed her suit, the headlines were swift and dramatic, casting her as a determined figure standing up against what she framed as serious wrongdoing. But in the months since her initial filing, the narrative has shifted in subtle yet significant ways. While she still commands a loyal fan base, there are now competing storylines emerging that suggest the case may not be as straightforward as originally presented. Some entertainment journalists have pointed to the timing of certain filings and public appearances, noting that they seemed carefully choreographed to coincide with unrelated promotional events in Lively's career, which raises questions about whether the litigation strategy is being influenced by considerations beyond the courtroom. Baldoni's team is believed to be aware of this perception, and may even be counting on it to help sway both the court and the public. In their favor, one source familiar with high-stakes litigation remarked that when a case starts to look more like a publicity campaign than a legal proceeding, judges can sometimes become less sympathetic to the plaintiff's position and more inclined to scrutinize the evidence with extra care. Meanwhile, Lively's attorneys are said to be preparing a robust opposition to the dismissal motion, likely to argue that Baldoni's filing is simply an attempt to avoid accountability and to shut down a case that deserves to be heard on its merits. They will likely emphasize that the dismissal standard is high and that courts are generally reluctant to throw out cases before the discovery process has been completed. However, even if the court does not grant the motion in full, the process of responding to it will force Lively's side to lay out more of their evidence and legal reasoning than they might have planned at this stage, which could provide Baldoni's team with valuable insight into their strategy behind the scenes. Publicists and crisis managers for both parties are working overtime to shape how the latest developments are being interpreted by the media and the general public in an age where social media can amplify narratives instantly. The release of the dismissal motion and any subsequent filings will be pored over by supporters, critics, and neutral observers alike, creating a feedback loop that can influence not only public opinion, but also the morale and resolve of the parties involved. Legal analysts on television panels have already begun debating the strengths and weaknesses of Baldoni's approach, some noting that a successful dismissal could end the case quickly, while others caution that such motions are often denied in celebrity disputes, due to the court's willingness to allow controversial claims to proceed to discovery. Yet the symbolism of the move is undeniable. By seeking dismissal, Baldoni is making it clear that he is not merely on the defensive, but is willing to go on the offensive to protect his reputation and career. This shift in posture could also influence potential settlement discussions, because a party that appears confident in their ability to have the case thrown out may be less inclined to agree to terms that involve any admission of wrongdoing. The ripple effects of this filing extend beyond the courtroom into the corridors of Hollywood power, where relationships, reputations, and future collaborations are often influenced by how stars handle adversity. A decisive legal victory for Baldoni could enhance his standing as someone who can withstand intense scrutiny and fight back effectively, while a setback for Lively could make industry decision-makers more cautious about aligning themselves too closely with her in upcoming projects. This is not to say that Lively's career would be over, far from it, but in an environment where perception is everything, even small shifts in public and professional sentiment can have long-lasting consequences. For now, the entertainment world is in a holding pattern awaiting the court's decision on whether to grant the dismissal motion, and in the meantime, both sides are continuing to engage in the kind of careful image management that has become standard in modern celebrity litigation, in a matter where the law, media, and personal brand are all intertwined. The next steps taken by each side will be as much about optics as they are about legal positioning. The stakes are high, the attention is relentless, and the outcome remains uncertain. But what is clear is that Justin Baldoni has signaled in no uncertain terms that he will not be a passive participant in this battle, and that he is prepared to fight not only for a legal victory, but for control of the narrative itself. The filing of Justin Baldoni's motion to dismiss has not only shaken the legal strategies of Blake Lively's camp, but has also triggered an intense wave of discussion among Hollywood insiders, legal commentators, and fans who have been closely following every twist in this increasingly high-stakes confrontation. Within hours of the news-breaking, online forums and social media platforms were flooded with speculation about what this move means for the future of the case and for the reputations of both parties. Some supporters of Baldoni hailed it as a decisive and necessary counterattack, one that demonstrates his unwillingness to be cornered by allegations he believes are unfounded. Others, particularly those aligned with Lively's public image, framed it as a calculated attempt to avoid the transparency that a full trial would bring, regardless of the differing perspectives. There is no doubt that the motion has altered the psychological landscape of the dispute for both sides. Legal experts note that in celebrity litigation, momentum can be just as critical as evidence, because each filing and ruling can subtly influence how judges, juries, and the public perceive the underlying conflict. The detailed nature of Baldoni's motion suggests that his legal team is aiming not just for dismissal, but for a public relations win as well, by highlighting perceived inconsistencies in Lively's claims and framing the lawsuit as legally deficient. They are not only making their case, in court, but also planting seeds of doubt in the minds of the broader audience that has been following this story from the beginning. This dual audience strategy is becoming more common in high-profile disputes, where the court of public opinion often operates in parallel with the actual courtroom proceedings. Baldoni's team appears to be leveraging this dynamic, carefully crafting language that is legally sound yet accessible enough to be picked up by journalists and commentators livelies. Camp, on the other hand, is reportedly scrambling to reframe the conversation away from the procedural aspects of the dismissal motion and back toward the emotional and moral framing that initially garnered her significant public sympathy, however. Doing so without appearing defensive or reactionary is a delicate balancing act, especially when every public statement is dissected by both legal analysts and fans for hidden meaning or strategic intent behind closed doors. Both sides are engaged in rigorous preparation, with Baldoni's attorneys fine-tuning their arguments for the upcoming hearing, and Lively's team gathering every piece of evidence and testimonial support they can find to convince the court that the case deserves to proceed. The legal timeline is also becoming an important factor, as delays could either work in favor of Baldoni by allowing public interest to wane or help Lively by giving her team more time to shore up weaknesses in their case. Meanwhile, industry insiders are whispering about how this case is influencing ongoing and future deals for both stars in Hollywood, where risk aversion is a powerful driver. Producers, investors, and brand partners are watching closely to see how the public reacts to the evolving narrative. If Baldoni emerges from this chapter with the perception of having been unfairly targeted and successfully defended himself, it could boost his standing as a resilient and principled figure. Conversely, if Lively is perceived as having pursued a case that collapses under scrutiny, it could create hesitation among those considering professional collaborations with her. Though in the entertainment business, redemption arcs are always possible, for now, the focus remains on the legal maneuvering, and the upcoming court decision on the motion to dismiss the stakes are enormous, because a ruling in Baldoni's favor could effectively end the litigation before it reaches the expensive and unpredictable discovery and trial phases. Such an outcome would not only save him considerable legal costs, but also spare him the ordeal of protracted public scrutiny of his personal and professional life. For Lively, however, a dismissal at this stage would be a major setback, one that could be difficult to spin as anything other than a loss given the visibility of the case and the strong public position she has taken from the outset. This is why her legal team is expected to fight the dismissal motion with every argument available to them, likely focusing on the principle that cases should be decided on their merits after full evidence is presented, rather than being shut down early on as the date for the court's decision approaches. Both camps are engaged in what amounts to a parallel trial in the media, each seeking to shape public perception without overstepping the bounds of what might prejudice the actual legal process in this environment. Every interview, social media post, and public appearance carries strategic weight and is carefully planned to align with the overarching legal objectives. This is the reality of modern celebrity litigation, where the battle for narrative dominance can be nearly as fierce as the fight for a favorable verdict in court, and where losing control of the story can sometimes be more damaging than losing the case itself. For Baldoni, this motion represents not just a legal tactic, but a declaration that he will not be a passive participant in a fight that affects both his reputation and his career. For Lively, it is a moment of truth that will test the resilience of her case, the loyalty of her supporters, and her ability to adapt to a shifting legal and public relations battlefield. The coming weeks will determine whether this bold strike by Baldoni results in a decisive victory, or whether it simply becomes another chapter in what is already one of Hollywood's most closely watched legal dramas. As the dust settles on this latest legal maneuver, the entertainment world waits with bated breath to see how the court will respond to Justin Baldoni's bold demand that Blake Lively's lawsuit be thrown out entirely. Whether this motion to dismiss is granted or denied, the ripple effects will be felt far beyond the courtroom, because this is not simply about legal arguments. It is about the narratives that have taken hold in the media, the alliances forming and fracturing behind closed doors, and the way public opinion shifts with each development. Baldoni's move has already reshaped the tone of the dispute, signaling that he is willing to fight back with precision and determination, while Lively's response will reveal the strength of her case and her ability to maintain the upper hand under pressure. The stakes for both are enormous. Careers, reputations, and long-cultivated public images are on the line. In an industry where perception often shapes reality, For Baldoni, a dismissal could mean vindication and the chance to move forward without the shadow of litigation. For Lively, surviving this challenge could reaffirm her credibility and position her as someone who stands firm, even when the odds are against her. Either way, the outcome will be studied, dissected, and debated by fans, critics, and industry insiders for months to come. This case has become a symbol of the intersection between law, celebrity, and public image, and its resolution will serve as a cautionary tale or a rallying cry, depending on which side emerges victorious until the court makes its decision. The tension will remain, the speculation will grow, and the eyes of Hollywood will stay firmly fixed on what has become one of the most closely watched legal battles of the decade.